Okay, so I'm Larry Bauer, Chief Executive Officer of the Family Medicine Education Consortium, a not-for-profit that responds to the bright ideas of family docs. I've been here. Hitting the wrong button. Yeah, makes sense. So our mission, we believe family medicine is critical to the health of the nation, and we're working to achieve the full potential of family medicine. And quick comment, the full potential of family medicine is not back there in time. It's in the future, and we're all going to develop that and show what the full potential of family medicine is. So I've shown you this before. This is the innovations curve, the social diffusion curve. If you'd like to Google it and look it up, it's based on some very significant research, manufacturing, agriculture, technology, basic change. 2.5% of any group, innovators. They just can't take it anymore. They've got to do something different. Another 13.5% are early adopters. They wish things were different, but they don't like to take risk quite as much. They're not going to leap off the edge of the building, but they're going to watch for the people who are leaping off in front of them and get together with them and figure out how they did it. Early majority, late majority, and the laggards. It's helpful to think about that when you're thinking about social change. So we created the Innovators Network in 2008. You can see a little bit about, I'm moving quickly through the preamble here to get to the substance. So hopefully I've established some credibility for finding innovations in family medicine and primary care. We found direct primary care before it had a name, 2008. We found Jeff Brenner, the hotspotter. By the way, all that stuff from Mercy Health, talking about 5% of the population consumes 50%. That was Jeff Brenner, a family physician in Camden, New Jersey, who discovered that with his Excel spreadsheets using an all-payer database in the city. We found him. A bunch of others. So I'm hoping that I have some credibility with the audience, because what I'm about to tell you is the stuff that's the future of the U.S. healthcare system. So here we go, the road less traveled. So number one, there's a family doctor named Michael Fine. He wrote a book just recently published this month called Healthcare Revolt. His thesis, we don't have a healthcare delivery system in the United States. We have a healthcare finance system, aka a wealth production system. We don't have a primary care driven system. We don't have a primary care, we don't have a delivery system. So Michael, who was Commissioner of Health for the state of Rhode Island, was a practicing family doc before that, one of the inventors of direct primary care. He created Health Access Rhode Island back in 2004, 2005. He's written this book, and it's the start of where Innovators Network is going this year, November 9th, Westchester, New York. It starts with the revolt, okay? You have the handout that I gave out that gives you the schedule for our Innovators Network meeting this year.
Larry, it says 2019.
How about that? It's a typo. That's the future. How many people got a copy of this book?
What is it?
It's called How Healing Works by Wayne Jonas. Just showed up, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it
Two
weird?
of them.
Yeah.
What, you mean they came to your office or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just showed up. Don Berwick wrote the cover letter that was stuck inside, and thousands of physicians across the country got this. So since you didn't get it, I'm going to tell you what's in it. So Wayne Jonas is a family physician for a long time. He's still practicing family doc, Fort Belvoir, New York, or I'm sorry, Fort Belvoir, Maryland, Virginia, thank you. And he was the director of the National Institute of Health, Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine, for about 25 years. And he did all the research, he and his team did all the research looking at complementary and alternative medicine, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, under what circumstances does it work. So he learned a great deal, and he tries to transmit that in this book, How Healing Works. The power of the placebo effect. Placebo effect is a real thing. It actually outperforms a lot of interventions. So what is that thing called the placebo effect, really? That's what the book is all about, so I'll let you order it and read it. Wayne's coming to our meeting. He's coming to our meeting, and what Wayne's decided to do with the final stage of his career is to take all that knowledge and wisdom and drive it into primary care. Now, in my opinion, remember I'm a social worker, so I can say some things that maybe some others can't say, because I'm in some ways an outsider, but I've been inside for a long time. Y'all have put up with too much cut your time. If you think about what Barbara Starfield reported, it was the Dr. Velati's that she reported on. And by the way, that primary care delivered great outcomes, the kind of outcomes in terms of quality and cost that America wants now. So what's happened since that period of time? Cut. Somebody once used the image of the frog, in the pot of water with the temperature rising. You all have been boiled. It's not just rising, you've been boiled. When I sit and listen to you talk about not having enough time, and then what you have to do is you have to hire other people. That's called overhead where I come from. And you bring them in because you don't have the time to deliver the care that you know really needs to be delivered. Some of that overhead is helpful. So they have skimmed primary care for decades. They figured out you were easy pickings. They couldn't quite do it to the cardiologists or the orthopods because they wouldn't put up with it. They would just say no, and they'd fight pitched battles. Family medicine, primary care people just sucked it up. Okay, so we're getting squeezed, we're getting cut, we're out of the hospital, et cetera, You've put up with that, okay, in my opinion. So what happens is that the robust impact that's capable, what you all as healers are capable of, you've allowed the production mindset to trim your healing capabilities. And I think you all know that. I listened to you guys talking about this in this meeting. You have this inner healing capability and understanding. You know how to connect with people, and that's being trimmed. Get on the hamster wheel. Don't take the time. Time is the rate limiting step. Your time, your ability, not only with your time with the patient, but your ability to invest time in your care delivery system has been squeezed. And now you're talking about, we can't quite do it. And perhaps that trust issue is being undermined because you have to see people faster, quicker, and you have to put up with a bunch of things. So, it starts with the healthcare revolt. We don't have a primary care-driven system. We don't even have a system. So we have to articulate a primary care-driven system. What would it actually look like if healthcare in the United States was driven by the values and principles of primary care? That's what we're going to start working on November the 9th with Wayne. And if you look at the list of other people, Joe Scherger will be there. Think about it. If you can somebody over here talked about nutrition and disease reversal. I forget, yesterday somebody talked about that. So very clearly, you can reverse type 2 diabetes in 3 to 6 months. Bam. Why aren't you? Because you don't have the time. So what if you had the time? Either you or the part of your team, and you eliminated the need for the medicines. My wife just reversed her type 2 diabetes. It took her about 6 months. Her family physician helped her with some help from the nutritionists. Let's just do it. You need the time. You need to have the time so you can deliver the power, the healer's power that you're capable of. Okay? That's innovation number one. Reframing from, and I've been using the term intentionally, production-driven to healing-driven. It's a total shift. It's actually going back to family medicine that I first got introduced to in the late 70s and early 80s. It's healing-oriented. It's a different approach. It's not more procedures or more methods or one method over another method. It's a shift in mental focus. You have to be able to connect with the people. You have to hear where they're coming from. You have to hear their goals. If you want to get into that, you can read Wayne's book. He's got something called a hope note, which is a different thing than a SOAP note, and it's a way of anchoring and focusing. So yesterday I had breakfast here with a family doctor named Scott Kennard, who read this book. And he said it transformed. He's a senior level guy. It's transformed how he's delivering care. And he feels like a family doctor again. And he talked about a particular patient who, because of the hope note, he had to ask a different set of questions that connected with her core issue, and found out that really what was going on with her was she was abused when she was a child. We call it ACEs scores, if you're into adverse childhood events survey. She's getting different care. She's getting the help that she needs. Different mindset. That's innovation number one. Innovation number two. I'll tell you a quick story. Sally Rixey is a family physician at Franklin Square in Baltimore, New York. She was also a past member of our board. Sally was a very energetic, vision-driven family physician. She decided to get her whole practice together at Franklin Square, all the staff, all the residents, all the faculty, all the nurses, to talk about how they could improve their care delivery and the patient's experience. At the same time, she identified some VIP patients. This is not a wealthy practice. They have a homeless shelter right next door. But these are people with agency that she got together in a separate room and had a facilitated conversation. Then she brought the two groups together. When the patients found out what the insurance companies were doing to their doctors, they were furious. They had no idea what they were going through to get paid. By the end of the day, on their own, without coaching, they were calling the insurance company saying, "How dare you do this to our doctors?" So let's go back to the founding of the family medicine movement. The founders were great. They did not only create the family medicine movement. The family medicine movement, state by state, involves citizens, patients, legislators who forced upon academic medicine this new innovation called family medicine. It was patients, citizens, and their power, combined with the founders and their tenacity, that created the family medicine movement. So what happened to the citizens? They became patients. Oh, and we have to protect them from this. They're the customer getting the bad care, or the uneven care, and sometimes the dangerous care. But we don't want to engage them in a discussion about a better care delivery system. My God, what other industry would do that? Leave the customer out. So we have to find a way that's ethical, responsible, to engage. That's what these guys are doing. Anybody know who Andrew Morris Singer is? Primary Care Progress. So Andrew has an internist, came out of Harvard, created Primary Care Progress, and he's got a private foundation. And he believes in the power of people engaging with docs. So the first conversation is what we're doing right now. Care providers, clinicians, talking to one another about the delivery system. The second conversation is patients talking to patients about mostly how bad things are, their bad experience, whatever, occasionally how well things work. The third conversation is clinicians and patients engaging in a meaningful conversation within a system. They've now run their third pilot. They're about to run their fourth one in Lehigh Valley in October. They are getting incredible dialogue going on between the patients and the docs. That will lead to change. This innovation, when you bring the patients back in a meaningful way, in dialogue, and there's true engagement, you guys are capable of these incredible relationships. You get a group of patients in there with you and you're all talking about this. Man, talk about agency and influence and power. That's innovation number 2. So, it is my personal desire, and Dave, before you started, let me give you a little set you up for this. Okay, so look, the insurance companies intentionally drove you out of the hospital. It was a choice that they made. They wanted you out because they said, we'll save money. These LMDs, I mean, my God, they can't keep up with these things. Get them out. I've talked to people in leadership roles, now retired, from insurance companies back in the 80s and the 90s. It was an intentional choice. They were going to make more money by getting you out. Okay? So, what happens when you're gone? The person who knows the most about many of the patients, their context, why they're on the medicines that they're on right now, why they're not on some other things that they're on, all of that stuff that you know, that's wiped out. It's erased from the clinical equation in the emergency room. ER docs got a brand new person, they don't know them. Maybe, supposedly, the EMR conveys all that stuff that you have. I don't think so. It's not that. That's not what I'm hearing. Okay? So, I want you back. When I end up in the hospital one day, I want my family physician engaged in my care. That doesn't mean they have to be the physician of record. I want Phil's knowledge of me in that hospital setting so that I don't get bumped off by accident. I mean, it's not intentional, it's just by accident, but it is the number 3 cause of death, medical error. And it's preventable to a large extent, if you would please. So how are we going to do that? And make it tolerable. I hear about the burnout issues.
Years ago, family physicians and general internists took care of their hospitalized patients. The admitting physician knew his or her patient, their medical history, their family, and social circumstances. A decision was made by the insurance industry that primary care physicians needed to be driven out of hospital care of their patients. The belief was that a physician who specialized in care of hospitalized patients was more competent and would provide a more cost-effective way to care for patients when they needed to be hospitalized. The result has been that when patients are most vulnerable and anxious, the patient and their families must engage with physicians who have extremely limited knowledge of the patient and their circumstance. It was assumed that the electronic medical record would serve as a clinical information bridge between the primary care physician and the hospitalist. This turned out to be inaccurate. The EMR does not work this way in most cases. Instead of the medical error rates going down, they went up. To reduce the rates of unnecessary care, to increase patient satisfaction, and to decrease the medical error rate, there is a need to find a way to re-engage primary care physicians in the care of their patients who need hospital services. The primary care physician does not need to be the physician of record. Knowledge of the patient and the patient's problem and their circumstances needs to be available when the patient first engages the hospital through the emergency room at certain points during their course of care while hospitalized and during the discharge planning process. This needs to be done with 2 things in mind. First of all, time needs to be made available in the primary care physician's schedule to engage in this way. And the primary care physician needs to be fairly compensated for this valuable service, which will reduce unnecessary hospital admissions, readmissions, and unnecessary care. Enter stage left, the robot.
Mr. Roberts. Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Two
We're hoping to
resident
discharge you
volunteers.
today and send you home with some new medications.
Today?
Yeah, today. We had a blood clot here, so we wanted to send you home with some Lovenox.
Oh, I don't know how I feel because I'm already on a ton of medications. I don't know.
Do you know the name of any of your medications?
I know a few of them, but my primary care doctor, Dr. Meehan, he knows them all, and I don't know if I can go home today. I don't know how I feel.
Actually, I know Dr. Meehan very well. If you don't mind, I can give Dr. Meehan a call and see if he will stop by virtually.
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Hello? Hi, Dr. Meehan. Would you have a couple of minutes to stop by and see Mr. Roberts? Thank you. He'll be coming in a couple of minutes.
He'll be here?
Yeah, he'll come in virtually.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Can you see me?
Oh, Dr. Meehan, is that you?
Hi, Dr. Meehan.
Hi, how are you? So good to see you.
I'm okay, Dr. Meehan. This lovely doctor's trying to tell me about some new medicines. I told her to talk to you.
So, hi, Dr.
Excellent.
Meehan.
Thank you, Dr. Tom, for calling in. What questions can I answer?
We were hoping to send him on Lovenox today. I know he had some concerns about other medications, and we wanted to ask you what you thought.
Well, I can look through his chart right here. As far as I'm seeing, so as you probably know, he has a history of hyperlipidemia, and that's really it. The only medications you're taking home are the aspirin I gave you last year. I started you on atorvastatin 40, and that's pretty much it. I'm not seeing anything else that would contraindicate you from having Lovenox. I may want to hold off on the aspirin for a little bit, considering that you're going to be on Lovenox for a little while, and I don't want to put leads. But other than that, that's it.
So, guess how much that device costs? Somebody take a guess, throw a number out. How much? $1,000. Nope, too low.
Let's suppose that you're writing a really important email to a colleague.
It's $2,500 for that device.
Or
One prevented admission, and you paid off the device forever. $2,500, you get an app, you have your own robot, if you'd like to have your own, or you can have them on the floor. I mean, my God, how many robots could you have for the price of one hospital bed? A bunch. So you can navigate it fully, you're engaged, you're doing FaceTime. You know, 10 years ago, this would have absolutely freaked out any patient. Now, we're all, you know, this is a new era that we're living in. You have the potential for you to be there with your patients from Tahiti, from your home, from your car, whatever. So, I've given you 3 innovations. Let me just... So I want to tell you this, family medicine's a movement, it's not just a specialty. It's a movement that has transformed everything it's touched in the U.S. healthcare system since it started, including medicine, medical education, and the full potential lies ahead of us. Okay, I gave you 3 innovations. Reactions, questions? Sure.
Can you speak to what you think the benefit of the robot is over just like an iPad that somebody holds with FaceTime? What does the robot get you?
That's a great question. What it gets you is puts you in charge. With the iPad, you can't see what the iPad is doing. Somebody's holding it, or they've experimented with that. This is so much more easy to use and easy to navigate. And if you go to the website, you will see that surgeons are using this across the country already. They're doing the rounds in the morning. They don't have to be there with the patient. If there's a nurse in the room, they roll in with the robot, bam, 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 they're on to the next one. It is a stable platform that you can control.
How do we get the link to that video? I want to do that.
I'll send it out to everybody. So I have a personal plea. I want you back in the hospital. I want you taking care of your people. And oh, by the way, you could be taking care of your patients in a nursing home. And when I showed this to Scott Kennard yesterday, he said, wow, I'm in a couple different locations here in town. I could be right there with my patients. It is up close, it is personal touch in a family medicine way because it's you on the other end of the camera, you who knows that person. So I have a strong plea to you. Just do it. Look, $2,500. I'm a social worker working in a not-for-profit, and if I had to, I could personally afford to buy one of those things if it meant that much to me. You folks want to demonstrate the full value of family medicine? You want your patients, you want to earn the trust of your patients, you want to have that kind of impact, isn't that worth $2,500 to you? And if you don't have $2,500, tell me you can't get somebody in your organization to do a pilot for $2,500. Now I'm pushing hard on this. This is a breakthrough strategy, I think, for family medicine and general internal medicine.
Okay, thanks a lot, Larry, I appreciate it.
Larry, I have a question.
Sure.
Hold it close. I have a question. How do the hospitals react to this?
You mean when the surgeons
Oh,
ask what they're
when
doing?
the family physicians come in and say, I'd like to put my robot in the hospital and make rounds.
No, they need to do it. So first of all, the hardest part of this is not the robot. The hardest part of this is the family physicians and the ER docs talking to each other with respect. So the ER doc values your opinion and you value that relationship. In systems, that is the hardest part, I believe, is getting the docs to talk. The technology is actually quite easy.
My experience is the hospitals want the hospital as
I'm going
a charge.
to tell you.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I just have found that the hospitals want the hospitals there as much as the insurance companies do.
Currently.
And they don't want the family doc showing up at all.
Currently.
But do you have any recommendations? on
Yeah,
how to
take
change it?
John's advice and just say no. Figure out a way, create a pilot, figure out a way.
Yeah, I mean, I work for a hospital, I work with the inpatient folks pretty intimately, and I think this is an interesting idea, and I think nowadays the hospitals do want the primary care provider involved to decrease readmissions, to decrease unnecessary ER visits. We're basically at risk, I mean, if you look at value-based contracts, we're at risk for more and more of these third-party payer contracts all the time. And it's just the workflow and logistics of this which is challenging when you have patients on multiple different floors and just how do you implement this. But I think it's an interesting idea.
Figure out a pilot that you could do that would work for you and your system. Get comfortable with it. And the value proposition, I mean, this is an incredible value proposition. They ought to have robots in every single floor. And they do in certain hospitals where the surgeons are currently doing this.
The other place I could see this working is we're moving to what's called a RNCC for our high-risk, high-benefit patients, and they are going to start doing telehealth with the patients at home when they go home, just like we saw with Mercy. But I could also see a great value of when my complicated, difficult patient, whether it's me or the RNCC, talks to the nursing staff or the social worker or God forbid, the hospital's at the hospital, about the information we all know about that patient that's not written in the chart would be hugely valuable at the beginning of the hospitalization and including at the end.
Absolutely. Okay, you can say you heard it here first. Oh, one last thing for those of you who are into burnout and resilience, Kathy Pipus has just written an incredible book that I highly recommend to you. It's called The Doctor's Dozen 12 Strategies for Personal Health and the Culture of Wellness. Catherine Pipus up at Dartmouth. Just thought I'd throw that in.